Hey guys, it's Ashley Simone here. I hope you guys had an amazing Tuesday. I am back, and tonight I will be talking about the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel. Um, I'm gonna just go ahead and jump right into it. Ezekiel was one of the younger men taken into Babylon. I believe he was 25 years old when they took him and his wife into Babylon. He served as a kind of religious counselor to the Hebrew exiles who were allowed to live in a colony by themselves near the banks of the near a river. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but they were able to. God had already been showing him favor to be able to live in a colony by themselves. I see that as favor. Ezekiel's calling from God. I believe when Ezekiel first got this calling from God, he saw this vision from God, and it was basically saying that God is still in control. What he saw was saying that even though all of this stuff is going on in the world, God is still in control. God is still alive. I believe like a lot of people in Babylon were saying that our God that we serve was basically dead, but God came to Ezekiel and was telling him, "No, I'm not. I'm well and alive. I'm well and alive." And I think like a lot of people were like wondering why God will allow them to be exiled into Babylon, and they were like feeling like God just forgot about them or didn't even care about them anymore. So when these people were telling them that God was dead, they believed it, and that's when God called Ezekiel and he was like, "Ezekiel, I need you to go tell these people this stuff that I'm showing you." And that's what Ezekiel did. And when God showed him this vision, Ezekiel fell on his face because he was looking at God. Not God himself, but he knew what he was looking at. So a voice calls Ezekiel saying, "Son of man, I am sending you to the Israelites, to a rebellious nation that has rebelled against me. And whether they listen or fail to listen, they will know that a prophet has been among them." Ezekiel is then handed a scroll on which is written words of lament and mourning and woe. He is told to eat the scroll, and when he does so, he finds that it tastes sweet as honey. He knows that the message he is to proclaim pertains disaster, yet he enjoys the taste given to him. So God gives Ezekiel the scroll of what is going to happen, and what was going to happen was everything with Jerusalem was going to go down. It was going to go down, and that was something bad. But as he ate this scroll, it tastes sweet as honey. Why? Because God had a plan. You know, some things we got to go through in life. It may not feel good, it may not look good, but it has purpose. In the end, it's going to turn out good. It's going to turn out good. And he was doing it for a reason. He was doing it to strengthen these people, to let them be able to learn, let them be able to acknowledge and know that he is God, the one and only God. And by putting them through this was just like preparement. It was like teaching them. And once he was done teaching them, they were going to love him. And love him and worship him and know that he did everything for them. And how wouldn't that be sweet? So the people who were left in Jerusalem after the first captivity told themselves with the idea that they were better off than their brethren who were taken to Babylon. They believed that Yahweh would protect them from any foreign power and that the city of Jerusalem would never be overthrown. And that wasn't true. These people wasn't living right. Like, God had to put them through the things that he had to put them through because he had to teach them a lesson so that they wouldn't do it again and they would love and appreciate who he was to them, who he is to us. So Ezekiel's task was to make it clear to them that the city would be destroyed and also the reason why it would be overthrown. So Ezekiel had to relate. A lot of people say Ezekiel was like one of the wildest prophets. Not wild as in like out of control, but wild as in God prophesied through him through his life. For instance, on a piece of towel, he drew a picture of Jerusalem. He laid on his left side for 390 days, and then he laid on his right side for 40 days. And he explained that for each day he laid on his left side, northern Israel would be in captivities for 1 year. And for each day he laid on his right side, the southern kingdom, Judah, would spend a year in captivity. So he was demonstrating what God was showing him. And in one instance, God told him to cut all his beard off, all the hair on his beard, and burn it. And another incident, his wife died, and he didn't cry, he didn't show any type of sadness or anything. It wasn't that he didn't care, but God was doing these things, letting him show these people these things, because that's just like what was going to happen to them, what was going to happen to Jerusalem. God was going to basically kill it all, and he wasn't going to show no mercy until they had learned what they needed to learn. He prophesied against mountains, stumping and clapping his hands. God told him to pack his bags and dig a hole to leave the city. Taking sticks and writing messages on them, prophesying to the mountains of Edom and Israel. All these things that he did symbolized the destruction of Jerusalem, the punishment of the people. So that's how he prophesied to these people. He used his life to prophesy to these people. God even showed him a vision of himself appearing to him as half man, half metal. And it was saying that these people were worshiping idols. God even informed him about an underground society of evil, forsaking God for idols. And he also showed him a guy clothed in linen, marking the foreheads of the righteous so that they will be spared when the Babylonians invaded. So God showed him a lot. This book, Ezekiel, has a whole bunch of different things where he was prophesying. It's a lot to read, but it's good and it's worth reading it. God also showed him the glory of the Lord leaving the temple. A lot of people were believing things that wasn't from God, mixed with things from false prophets. He even showed him a parable, and in this parable it was two sisters. The sisters represented Jerusalem and Samaria, and he called these two places spiritual prostitutes, and both were unfaithful to God, and judgment on these, and there was going to be judgment on these nations. These people, they were basically mistreating God's chosen people, and just not doing the poor right at all. It was a mess, and God was tired. When he gets tired. He's slow to anger, but he does get tired, and he will do what he has to do to straighten his people up. But God also shows Ezekiel hope for him. He tells Ezekiel that there will be a return of God to a glorious new temple. They also were prophecies of the return to the house of David. The return of the people, the return of the temple, all of that was coming back, and God also told Ezekiel about all of that. Ezekiel is the watchman. He was to say exactly what God tells him to say. God leads Ezekiel to a pile of old bones. Not old bones, but a pile of bones. They're said to be the bones of the people killed when Jerusalem was captured and destroyed by the Babylonians. And God speaks to Ezekiel and tells him to speak to these bones, and those bones started moving. They started coming together, muscles started forming, flesh started to come on the bones. It was basically everything in reverse. God breathing and bringing life back to the people of Israel is what he was demonstrating with that. And oh, what a mighty God we serve. For God to be able to do a thing like that, how could you not worship him? How could you not fear him? How could you not love and adore him? Do what he has told you to do. God said, I'll place my spirit within you, and you shall live, and I will place you in your own land. Then you shall know that I am the Lord. I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant. And he was talking about Jesus then. Israel will be restored to its land as a nation retrieved by God, made right with him by his spirit. And chapter 40 through 48 is basically talking about the return of the glory of the Lord, and how their sins had caused the exile and destruction and departure, but God's goodness and love will cause the return. God shows Ezekiel a vision of a lot of stuff. He shows him the new temple. He shows him God's glory filling the temple. He shows him the law of this new temple for everyone. He also shows him the healing river from the temple to the Dead Sea, which would be filled with fish. And he also showed him the division of the land. In chapter 43, the glory returns, and it ends with the name of the city. The new city will be called The Lord is There. So Ezekiel is a good book. It was very interesting to me. It's a hard book to understand, I would say. To me it was, but it's worth taking the time to study and just get all the good nuggets and stuff that you can get out of there, because has used Ezekiel in a very, very mighty way. I believe Ezekiel represented the Spirit of God, and I'm going to do a video on those 3 major prophets who represented different things, but I know that Ezekiel represented the Spirit of God, and he did what God told him to do, and I would say well done to him. It was tough. I know it was tough, but he did what God told him to do. Even though he had to go through some rough things to prove a point to people, he still did it. He still stood through the whole thing. He finished his race, and he finished it well. You wouldn't believe how many prophets run from what God is trying to tell him to do, him or she to do. And Ezekiel, he did it. He did it in a very different way than any other prophets that I have studied on, and I take my hat off to him. He did that. And I pray that y'all have learned something from this book of Ezekiel. Go check it out for yourself. I'm sorry that you might hear my kids in the background a lot in this video, but please, please, please don't don't judge us for that. I'm about to put them to bed now. So y'all, I pray that y'all have an amazing night and you learned something from this video, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.